All right,
Da, da, da.
we are streaming.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Twitchies. How are you this evening? Let me make
Fine
sure.
Easter Sunday.
Oh, it is. I keep forgetting today's Easter.
All right.
I gotta make sure everything's turned up so that I don't screw up like I usually do. All right, everything is... Ooh, I better turn that up. All right, we're good to go.
Cool. I just posted it on Facebook. I'll share it on the Nerd Cave page.
Awesome.
And we'll be good to go.
All right, here we go. This episode of the Nerd Cave Retro is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
You're listening to the Nerd Cave Network.
Greetings, programs, and we are back again for another edition of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And I'm Derek Diamond.
So, Derek, we've had an interesting week. Why don't we tell everybody about what we did last night and what will be coming soon on the Derek Diamond Experience?
So, I had the fantastic pleasure of doing a panel for my solo show, The Derek Diamond Experience, about the film Survey, which you and I were both a part of this past summer.
Yes, sir.
Editing is pretty much complete on it. I know there's still a little bit of audio work that needs to be done, but I was telling Steve Wise, the director, that day after we finished wrapping production, or at least wrapping filming, that I was already planning on doing a panel about the movie, having, him, the cast, the crew to talk about it. And we finally had the chance to do it last night. And people can go on my Facebook page and they can watch the video version. I'll be posting the audio version probably in May, if I had to guess. But it was one of the most fun panels that, I've done on my show. It was just great hearing, how Survey got started, how everyone got involved, and funny onset stories and things like that. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear from your perspective. But it was fun, and I remember Anna, who played Survey, kept saying, sorry we're getting so off track, but I just love hearing you guys talk about those things. So, what did you think of it?
Oh, I had a blast, man. It was fun just getting to hang out with everybody again. Just kind of being in the same room, hanging out, talking about everything. It was really fun. And then the actual panel itself was really fun and went on for like almost 2 hours. So it's going to be a good chunk of content when you finally get it up on the Derek Diamond Experience podcast feed. But you can actually go look at the video now. Just go to the Derek Diamond Experience Facebook page and you can watch the video of it.
What's funny is I was talking with Steve after the podcast, and he was like, "Are you going to split it into 2 parts?" I was like, "Maybe," because usually if I have shows that run that long, I'll split it into 2 parts because, 2 hours is a lot of time to listen through one podcast. So I may end up splitting it into 2.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea to split it into 2. I was going to ask you guys, is Steve going to add that onto the Blu-ray as an extra?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes, he is. So, and he was telling me he was going to add that and the panel from Pensacon.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I still haven't even heard the audio of that yet.
Yeah, I've got to sync up the audio and the video because to explain, for the viewers and the listeners, I basically had to record the audio through my Zoom recorder because otherwise it would require a very, very long XLR cable that I do not possess. So just plug my recorder into the speaker and hit record, and I can go and sync it in the Adobe Premiere, which is a video editing software. But yeah, that'll be included on the Survey Blu-ray as well whenever that comes out. So
awesome.
It was a really fun weekend. It was fun getting to hang out with everybody, and I appreciate you making the drive all the way over. It was fun having you, and you got to see the full studio that I'm in.
Yeah, Derek's got an awesome little studio there. There's a lot more that you can't see in the surrounding area. He's got two really cool posters behind him right now, but beyond the walls of the video, there's lots more cool stuff on the walls around him.
Lot of stuff I've collected throughout the years, but it was fun. Everybody should go check out the video version of the Survey panel, and like I said, probably in May sometime will be the audio version. More than likely, I will be splitting it into two parts because, with my schedule about to get a lot crazier, it'll be nice to have an extra week's worth of content.
Yeah.
Which speaking of that, next Sunday is my last Sunday of freedom.
Yeah.
So
baseball starts.
Thankfully, it won't affect the show until I think late May, but we'll figure that out when we get a little bit closer to it.
Yeah, once we get closer to it, we'll let everybody know what our new schedule is going to be. More than likely, it'll be probably either pushed back a couple of hours on Sunday night, or some nights we may have to actually move to a different night. But we're still going to try to go live on Twitch whenever we do. So just kind of keep an eye out on the Twitter page at Nerd Cave Retro. We'll let everybody know what's going on over there.
For sure.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun last night. I honestly didn't think I was going to make it at one point because I got held up by a really bad accident on the interstate on the Mississippi-Alabama border. And was sitting on the interstate in my car for like 45 minutes, not moving. And I kept telling Derek, calling him, going, still sitting here, not moving.
Well, I mean, it was all good. And I told Steve, after you called me, I was like, Jason might be a little bit late because he's stuck in traffic due to an accident. But, even if you were like half an hour or 45 minutes late, then I would have waited. Because if you were going to drive all the way over here just to do a podcast, then we would have. I mean, we started late anyway because of technical issues, but, it all worked out.
Yeah, but it was a blast. Go over there and watch the video of it on the Derek Diamond Experience Facebook page and listen to the audio when it comes out next month. It's awesome. And whenever Survey becomes available on Blu-ray or DVD, whatever your preference, we'll let everybody know so they can go make us some money or make Steve some money. And maybe we'll
Absolutely.
get to make another one.
And, we're not saying this just because we were involved with it, but it's actually a really good movie.
It is. It's really good. I'm really proud of it. I can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah.
But on that note, let's go ahead and move into this month. No, actually, we're going into the news. Sorry about that. Well, this came out about a week ago. We're a little bit late on this, but something I definitely wanted to talk about because we covered this a couple of months ago, and we've also had a couple of conspiracy theories that we've thrown around since then about this story. But this is from VentureBeat.com. Atari pressed the reset button on its Atari VCS game console. Basically, excuse me, Atari made a lot of noise last year when it announced its Atari Box game console, but in December, just as it was about to launch its crowdfunding campaign and pre-orders for the box had hit the pause button. The company postponed its pre-orders, and its project general manager, Feargal Oh, Lord. How do you pronounce this name? Kanulad?
Kanulad? I have no idea.
Oh, anyway,
I have no idea.
Mr. Feargal left. And during the GDC, it announced it was back on track and renamed the box the Atari VCS, which is the original name for the Atari 2600 that was released in 1977. So that's not going to cause any kind of brand confusion or anything. They caught up with Atari CEO Fred Chesney Chesney's and talked about the new plan to bring the retro modern game console to Atari fans. He showed off the prototype, which and the new controllers, which are cool looking, but and not from this site, but from several other sites that met up with him during GDC. It was not a working prototype. It was just, it looked nice, but it didn't work. And the controllers were also, what were they? They hooked the controllers up to some computers because they were USB controllers, and they didn't work either. So I'm thinking this was just basically a ruse to try to. I still think that there's no prototype. All there is this box, and they're showing it off to try to garner interest. And it looks really cool. The box itself looks cool. The controller, they actually have, it's basically a standard looking controller, like an Xbox controller. And then there's one that's looks like an original Atari controller, with the joystick and the one red button. But basically, I don't think this is real. I think this is just, it was, a mocked up, not even a prototype, but just like just a mock-up, and they're trying to pass this thing off as a prototype, and it doesn't even exist. I don't, at least in that's my conspiracy theory. This thing doesn't even exist.
So could you say that Feargle left in fear?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, this whole thing, I remember us first talking about this a while back on the show, and even then I felt a little suspicious. I was like, Atari, really? Like, yeah. I know Atari was a big deal back in the day, and they were a little bit before my time, but you haven't heard the name Atari in how many years? It's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was no real merit to, because we've talked about this numerous times, and every story we've read, I felt like there wasn't really that much to it. And like there was something up, as my grandpa used to say, I smell a rat in this situation. So,
well, they tried to say things like, the reason that they put it on pause for now is because there was something missing, and I'm like, yeah, what you're missing, games and a working prototype, developers, who your demographic is going to be. Like, who is this for? Is it for somebody like me who actually had a VCS or a 2600 back in the day? I'm not going to pay $350 for something that just plays Atari 2600 games. Like, I want to be able to play like modern games on this thing. Like, what size hard drive does it have? What kind of graphics processor does it have? What's under the hood of this thing? Like, they've told us nothing, absolutely nothing about it.
Now, if it were a modern console and say it had all of those old games on it, but they made new ones,
yeah,
then I think that would be kind of cool. But there's just really there's a lot of fluff to this, and I'm kind of over it at this point.
It said that their asking price for it said was $249 with the controllers, and that's $250 for this machine. But is there going to be new games for it? Do you have any developers? Like, who exactly is it going to have online capability? Is it going to be, is it going to have Netflix and Hulu and all that different type of stuff on it? Like, what is this thing going to have? They've shown nothing.
No, I mean, it's when companies announce a new console, they announce a lot of the features for it. Like, is it going to have, like you said, Netflix and Hulu? Is it going to have online capabilities? What games are coming out for it? With this, there's been nothing other than it's a console.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And they don't even have a working prototype to show off. All it is it's a nice looking mock-up. And that's it. So I think this is just, I smell something fishy with this whole thing, like you said, smell a rat. So I don't trust these people as far as I can throw them, because these are not the original Atari people that are pumping this thing. Like, there's no one that was involved with the original Atari that's involved with this. This is people who came along, bought the Atari name, and now they're trying to use that name to promote, a new quote unquote console. But this is something weird about this, and it smelled weird since the beginning. And as the further it gets along, the weirder it smells.
Yep.
Like a bad
I totally agree.
Like a bad piece of ham. It just stinks.
Ugh. Now that is pretty smelly.
Well, let's move on to the next story.
Yeah, this comes to us from the Daily Star. Super Smash Bros. Switch, Nintendo release date, characters, E3 2018 news, trailers, leaks, etc. Nintendo's All-Stars Brawler has been confirmed for Nintendo Switch, but what can we expect from the title? Now, we were talking about this story before we started. You know, I had mentioned that I've deliberately avoided the internet today for the most part because the day we're recording this is April Fool's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And we know a lot of websites like to have fun at the fans' expense. So, see, this is less so a news update and more a forewarning this week, especially with regard to being wary of any leaked information you might see online. We're referring to stories circulating in the last few days which have gathered pace based on some tweets from self-proclaimed industry insider Marcus Sellers. In a new post on Twitter, the video games insider commented on some key features for the returning Smash game. It includes references to Smash on Switch being a whole new game and a return of the Ice Climbers, who are actually quite a popular character. However, over the weekend, someone on Twitter came forward claiming to have supplied the fake info to Sellers, writing, "No, the Smash leaks from Marcus Sellers aren't real. How do I know? I've been his fake source this whole time." ROFL, which is, for those who don't know, means rolling on the floor laughing. Don't keep falling for fake leakers. You can see the tweets and fallout here. The bottom line, take leaks with massive grains of salt, especially from industry insiders with slightly unreliable track records. Well, let me ask you this. Have you been guilty of falling for any type of major April Fool's story?
No, not really. I remember way back in the day, probably around 2006 or so, 2005, Blizzard got me once with an April Fool's joke. But after that, I haven't fallen for any kind of April Fool's Day thing on the internet, because after that, I was like, yeah, you got to watch out on April 1st.
Yeah, I remember this was, I think, back in 2008. IGN posted this trailer for a live-action Zelda movie.
I remember that.
And I remember I lost my mind when I saw it. And then they showed the release title, or the release at the end. It says April 1st. I'm like, no! I fell for it. And I've never quite trusted IGN again.
Yeah, and I remember the thing that Blizzard got me with. Well, I was a real big WoW fan at the time, and they came out, new playable character coming soon were Wisps. And I was like, what the hell kind of crap is that? Who wants to play a Wisp? And then, of course, later in the day, found out it was an April Fool's joke. So I was like, oh, come on, man. Really?
Yeah. I mean, I still say I do think that the Smash Brothers game, because I want to say we talked about this maybe last week or the week before, I can't remember, but I do think it is a new game.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It also says on here that that it is coming at some point in 2018, but Metroid Prime 4 is also due to launch this year, maybe towards the middle section of the year. As such, you'd imagine Nintendo would want to keep release dates quite far apart, meaning we'll potentially see Smash Bros. Switch launch towards the end of the year. What do you think about that?
I think it would be a great thing.
That's what we were saying earlier, too. That's going to be the big holiday release for this year.
I think so. And, it's funny that, we were talking about this recently as well, that, when the Switch originally came out, both Mario and Zelda came out in the same year. So you're thinking, well, they've released their, number one and number two franchise.
Yeah.
What do you do to top it? Well, then you bring out Smash Brothers. You bring out Metroid. I'm hoping that at E3 we see some type of maybe a Star Fox announcement for
Yeah.
2019. Because I don't think you really need Star Fox this year if you're bringing out both Metroid and Smash Brothers. You can do Star Fox and maybe like Pikmin or another franchise for 2019. So
Yeah.
I still say the Switch for the most part is on the right track. I mean, we know we both have our gripes with their online program that's not coming out until September, but
Yeah.
for the most part, they've been doing the right things, I think.
Well, the good thing about the Switch, and they didn't really have much of this for, the Wii U. Not really so much on the Wii either, but there's been a lot of third-party support for the Switch. I mean, there's a lot of good games available on the eShop. Especially independent games. Like you go on the eShop and it is just chock full of indie games. Great stuff too, and there's still more coming. One of the ones I'm looking forward to comes out in May. It's Little Nightmares, and that's the one that I'm really looking forward to. That's coming out in May. But like I was talking about last week, I got SteamWorld Dig. That was released late last year in 2017, but it was on sale in the eShop for $5. I picked it up. Game was awesome. And so, yeah, the Switch has a lot of good stuff going for it. If you haven't picked one up yet, do so. I mean, it's the best console out right now.
It's worth it for Zelda and Mario alone.
Absolutely.
And I will say I did get, I might have mentioned this briefly last week, but I did get Splatoon 2 finally. Because I thought the first game was the few highlights of the Wii U.
Yeah.
And Splatoon 2 picks up right where the first one left off. It's really fun. I've had a lot of fun with the online campaign. Really fun shooter type game with a very unique twist. It's, unlike Halo or Call of Duty, it's obviously, it's basically paintball.
Yeah.
But it's still a lot of fun. It's very bright, very colorful, very fun game to play, especially with friends. So if you like multiplayer shooters, pick up Splatoon 2.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun.
If you're a Nintendo fan and you've dropped off the bandwagon like I did for quite a few years, jump back in with the Switch. It's totally worth it. I give it my 100% approval rating. I mean, yeah, the Nintendo Switch Online thing is still kind of a sticks in my craw a bit that it's not coming out till September. But once it launches, all wounds will be salved, I think. At least mine will. But on that note, let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history. Let's see. In April 19th of 1982, Namco releases Dig Dug, manufactured by Atari in North America. And that's one of the things I liked so much about SteamWorld Dig. It reminded me a lot of Dig Dug. It's like a cross between Dig Dug and a platformer.
I mean, everybody knows what Dig Dug is. I mean, it's one of those classic arcade games.
Yeah.
It's it's pretty much on every like arcade compilation you can find on like the PlayStation or the Xbox. Dig Dug is always on there. It's simple, but it's really fun. Anybody can play it. Fantastic arcade game.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
One of my favorites.
Absolutely.
Let's see. In 1982, Activision releases Pitfall, which goes on to sell 4 million copies. Another famous classic video game.
Oh yeah, I think everybody owned a copy of Pitfall for the 2600. Probably one of the top 5 best games you could get for the Atari 2600.
Yeah, again, it's one of those, I kind of put it in the same category as Dig Dug. Think of games from that era.
Yeah.
Pitfall and Dig Dug are two of the first that you think of.
Then, of course, they tried to move Pitfall over to the Nintendo and Super Nintendo, and man, those games were awful. They were really bad.
So I heard.
Yeah, don't bother if you if you find those at a garage sale. If they're asking $1 for them, that's too much. Tell them you'll just take it off of their hands for like free. because they're awful. And also in April of 1985, Atari Games releases Paperboy with a controller modeled after bicycle handlebars. Did you ever play Paperboy in the actual arcade?
I did not.
I played it a few times. I played it on Nintendo as well, but I wasn't a big fan of the game all that much. I like the arcade version better with the actual handlebars. But as far as I know the NES version is kind of like it's one of those classic games that everybody kind of loves. I just find it kind of repetitious and boring.
So I've heard. I want to say they made a Paperboy game for the. Did they make one for the Super Nintendo?
I think they
might have been
did.
Paperboy 2. Let me check real quick. Yeah, it was released for Paperboy 2 was Genesis, NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and Game Gear.
Yeah. Have they made any Paperboys since then?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Well, I don't think so, unless I'm just missing something.
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Because that was a big, that was a big title for the NES back in the day. You would think that would be something that they would, especially with motion controls, like on the Wii, that would have been a perfect Wii game.
Oh, absolutely. I might look at, because I've been curious about those games, because I remember reading about them in Nintendo Power. I thought about getting the SNES version and possibly doing a review for it. I might somewhere down the line, but it's one that I'm not like in a huge rush to do.
Yeah.
But in April of 1990, Konami releases Snake's Revenge, a sequel to Metal Gear for the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America, developed without the involvement of Hideo Kojima.
One of the only Metal Gear games made without his involvement, and also one of the most, I guess you'd say, hated of the Metal Gear games. Not a lot of people like that game.
I've never played a Metal Gear game before.
I'm not a fan of stealth games, especially back in the NES days. That's just not my cup of tea. Even up to these days, whenever there's a game, like I remember telling you a couple of months back when I was playing Breath of the Wild, there's a mission in there in the game when you have to do a lot of stealth stuff. When you go into the I can't remember the name of the hideout that you have to go into. I can't remember the name of the ninjas or whatever they were that you had to fight. But
yeah.
I was having such a hard time with that part of the game because I hate stealth missions. There's only a couple type of game modes that I hate. Anything with a stealth mission and anything with an escort mission. I hate escort missions. I hate it when games make me escort somebody.
Yeah, escort missions are the worst.
Yeah.
I can't stand doing those.
Hate them so much. And also in April of 1990, Williams releases Smash TV in the arcades, a twin-stick shooter about an ultra-violent game show. If I'm not mistaken, isn't this one of the very first kind of dual-stick shooters of this type? That there's a lot of like indie games out these days that kind of take on the Smash TV model of, like using the one stick to move and then the other stick to point where you're shooting. And it's just sort of like you're just constantly shooting. You just have to aim where you're shooting at.
Yeah, I want to see this came out in 90. Yeah, I would say that's about right. I've briefly heard a bit about this game, but I knew like next to nothing about it other than the title.
Yeah, and they actually had
I've seen this stuff somewhere before.
Yeah, they actually had a port of this for the Nintendo Entertainment System, which you actually used both controllers. The left controller moved your character, and then you used the second player controller, the D-pad. You use the D-pads on both controllers, and you use the D-pad on the player 2 controller to actually control where you're shooting. So it was sort of like a dual stick, their kind of workaround for a dual stick shooter. It was actually kind of ingenious.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, the arcade screenshot that's on the Wikipedia page, I could have swore I've seen this somewhere before, but I do not remember where. It's probably going to kill me the rest of this podcast, and I'll remember it like 2 minutes after we're done.
Well, it's like I said, there's a ton of these games out now, especially with like zombie type games where it's just sort of like what do you call the game type where it's just like horde mode is basically what it is. It's a game of horde mode, and you have to just survive the level until the waves of enemies are done, and then you move to the next area, and then you have to survive in there, and you get like upgrades to your guns and all that kind of stuff. So I think this might have been one of the very first games to actually kind of do that.
No, I think you're right. On April 20th, 1990, Nintendo releases Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light in Japan, innovating the tactical role-playing genre. I've heard a lot about the Fire Emblem franchise because a couple of their characters have been used in Smash Brothers, but never played a Fire Emblem game before.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this at all. I don't even.
I want to say this franchise might be like Japan exclusive.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's ports of it you could probably get over here now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's. Yeah, I know next to nothing about the Fire Emblem franchise.
And also to close us out for this month in video game history, excuse me, lots of sinus problems going on lately. It's stupid weather. April 2nd of 1994, Square Company releases Final Fantasy VI, then known as Final Fantasy III in North America, for the SNES on April 2nd in Japan and October 11th in North America. Now, here is a series of games that I can't follow at all because it's like it's over here, it's Final Fantasy III, over there it's 6, over here it's 4, and over there it'll be like 10. It like doesn't line up at all. And I'm just like, yep, I'm not even going to jump into this.
It's Final Fantasy 16 in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even going to follow it. Not even going to try.
No, I mean, you can't deny its success and the huge following that it has, but I cannot for the life of me get into Final Fantasy. And I've tried. I really have tried, but I can't do it. I don't know if it's because of the numbering system, like, it's 6 in Japan and 3 over here or vice versa. I don't know. I can't get into it.
I mean, anybody that is into the Final Fantasy series, please send us an email or an MP3 explaining to us. Like, one of the things I want to know is, like, can you just jump in at any point, or do you have to go back and play them all to understand what's going on? Is it all one big timeline, or is it kind of like Zelda, where each game is sort of like self-contained? Like, what's going on with Final Fantasy? So anybody out there that's like, screaming at us right now, send an MP3 or send us an email, nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. Tell us all about it and why you love the Final Fantasy series, and set us right. Give us a reason to try out Final Fantasy.
No, because I would enjoy hearing it. I would, I want to be able to even like kind of get into it, like at least understand why it's as popular as it is. But as of right now, I can't.
Yeah. But Derek, there's a really big movie that came out this weekend called Ready Player One. And, originally it was a book. And if people want to, well, Jason, I don't have time to read. Like, how am I supposed to read this book? They make a movie. I want to read the book, but I just don't have time. How can I read the book? Derek, tell them how they can read the book.
Absolutely. So for you, the listeners of the Nerd Cave Retro podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Now, my recommendation for this week would be Ready Player One, because the movie just came out, which I did see on opening night. Excellent movie. From what I've heard, it's quite different than the book, but it's still a really good movie because it still contains that, the core fun value of the book. The book is written by Ernest Cline, narrated by Will Wheaton of Star Trek The Next Generation fame.
Wheaton.
But they have other books as well. They have a ton of them. They've got Star Wars books. They've got fiction, nonfiction, fantasy, romance, gaming. They have books from World of Warcraft, Halo, Gears of War, Mass Effect. Literally any genre you can think of, Audible has. And if you're always on the go like I am, Audible's a great service to have. I can read, 15 to 20 minutes worth of a book, in the morning when I'm driving to work, and then another 20 driving back. You can still carve out some time without having to sit down and read a physical copy. So if you want to do that, just go to audibletrial.com/nerdcave. Again, that's audibletrial.com/nerdcave for your free audiobook download and 30-day free trial.
And on the note of Ready Player One, I will be going to see it at the 1 o'clock showing tomorrow because I have Monday off. Thank you, Easter. And I'll be seeing it tomorrow. And I'll give you a call tomorrow evening to let you know what I think about it.
Sweet. Can't wait to hear it.
But this week, we are going to be talking about... Yes, that is the music from Little Nemo, the Dream Master, known as Pajama Hero Nemo in Japan. It is a platform game released on the NES in 1990 by Capcom. It is based on the Japanese animated film Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, which in itself is based on the comic strip Little Nemo in Slumberland by Winsor McCay, which is really cool because even when I was a kid, this was an old property. I mean, you're talking about something that was, back in the early 1900s, at the turn of the 20th century, in the very wee decades of the 20th century, the comic pages were huge in newspapers. Remember newspapers, kids? Back in the day, like
extra.
Yeah, each comic strip was like an entire page, and that's how Little Nemo was read back in the day. It was like an entire newspaper page back in the day. And I mean, this was a property that, when my grandpa was a kid, like my grandfather used to read Little Nemo in the paper when he was a kid. So, by the 1980s, when this was released, or 1990, this was an old property. Like I saw this, I was like, oh, this is my grandpa's stuff. Why are they making games out of this? But, I never played this that much back in the day, even though I was a huge Capcom fan. I had maybe rented this like maybe once when I was a kid, and I don't know why I never got into it. We had one of our listeners, as a matter of fact, I need to, for some reason, I can't remember his name. I'm going to have to look it up. I think his name's Travis, but he got a hold of me a couple of weeks ago and asked me about doing Little Nemo, and I played it for a bit. I streamed it. I think it was last week sometime. And I played it for about 2 hours, I guess. And I played it for about 2 hours, and I kind of got stuck on the second level. And that's the thing that surprised me about this game, is how difficult it really is. I haven't gotten to play it too much since then, like maybe another 30 or 40 minutes. I'm still stuck on the second level, so this is not really going to be a really complete, full review of the game. But I wanted to go ahead and do it for him because he had asked me to do it. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name right now. I don't know why I am blanking on his name. I'm almost positive it's Travis. I guess I need to go to our Nerd Cave Retro page and go to...
Is it Travis Martin?
Yeah, that's it. Travis Martin. Thank you. But yeah, he brought it to my attention, and I knew that I really wanted to do this game at some point. But yeah, I started playing it. I got stuck on the second level, and if you want to go watch that, it's actually on my YouTube page at JFunktastic on YouTube. You can go watch me play it. It's a really cool game. I mean, it's a great concept. You're this little boy. Well, let me read the description here. The game revolves around a young boy and his own surreal dreams as he journeys to Slumberland. Nemo can ride certain animals such as a frog, a gorilla, or a mole by feeding them candy. Each animal has its own skills needed to complete the level. The purpose of the game is to travel to the Nightmare Land to rescue Morpheus, the king of Slumberland, from the clutches of the evil Nightmare King. And it's the gameplay is pretty simple. I mean, it's basically your basic platformer, and the controls are really, really good. I mean, it plays a lot like the feel of the game is a lot like Mega Man, very Mega Man-ish. Um, but yeah, from what I've played so far, it poses quite a challenge. So if you're into games that, platforming games, especially what they term Nintendo hard, which I'm throwing up air quotes right now, it's definitely a Nintendo hard type of game. And the music is very pleasant, but it was starting to drive me a little bit nuts in the second level because I heard it for like over an hour straight. But going back and listening to it, trying to look for some music to capture for the show tonight, it's got really good music in it. And but yeah, I mean, it's a really good game. I'm gonna keep playing it. I hopefully one day can get to the point where I can actually finish it, which would be nice. But here are some of the animal friends. Along with their special powers, grant Nemo increased stamina. Aside from the fish, frog, and hermit crab, no animals can swim. Nemo hops off an animal's back by pressing the select button. There's a gorilla. You can jump on a gorilla's back, and he can punch enemies when the B button is pressed because Nemo himself doesn't have an attack. All he has is candy that he throws at these certain animals that he can ride, and then he can use the animals to attack. And the point of each level is to actually go through. You have a certain amount of keys that you have to acquire, and the keys, you have to use the different animals' abilities to be able to reach the keys because they're kind of hidden throughout the levels. Some of the levels you have to, some of the keys you have to like dig underground, or you have to climb tall trees, or like use the bee to fly to certain areas to get there. And the bee can fly, but it will die if it gets wet. There's a frog. You can actually hop inside the frog's mouth, and you can jump higher and swim faster. But you walk slowly on land. You can actually knock enemies out by jumping on them while you're in the frog. There's a lizard. Hops on the lizard's back, and he runs a bit faster, and he can climb up walls. There's a hermit crab. You can burrow under sand and travel safely below the ground. It can use its claws to attack. There's a flounder, which is, of course, the swimming. There's a mole, which you can dig underneath the ground. And there's a mouse, and the mouse can attack enemies with his mallet, climb on walls, jump high, and can knock down certain walls. So, any questions thus far?
Well, it's funny because when you said you were going to review this game, it sounded really familiar. And I want to say that when I was a kid, I saw the movie, but I had no idea that it was a game as well.
Yeah.
Because I saw the cover of the poster and the DVD. So I want to say I might have saw that movie once as a kid because it looks very, very familiar, but I can't remember that much from it. But I had zero idea that this was a game. So this is all brand new to me.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, they Capcom got this property, but it wasn't like it was a huge property or anything. I remember the movie back in the day, but I mean, you're talking about a property that was a newspaper cartoon that was at least 50 to 60 70 years old at this point when they made this game. So to kind of come out with a new property for it, and because kids weren't really that familiar with it. Like, I was familiar with it at the time as a kid because I was really big on cartooning and learning about cartoons, and I was really kind of a nerd about newspaper comics when I was a kid. Still kind of am, but not as much as I was when I was a kid. So I knew who Little Nemo was when I was a kid. But it just, I guess it did well. I mean, but they never did any sort of like a sequel to it or anything. At least not that I know of. Let me make sure that they didn't. I doubt it. Little Nemo sequel video game.
You may have mentioned this earlier on, and if you did, I apologize. But as far as the gameplay goes, like what other games could you compare this to?
It's I don't know what I would compare it to. I mean, it's sort of a mix of like I said, it controls a lot like Mega Man, but there is like kind of Super Mario Brother elements in it. There's it's kind of a unique platformer because, like I said, Little Nemo doesn't have an attack. You have to use the different animals to complete your objectives or to take out other enemies. So I can't really think of anything that sort of takes that same model at least not anything that jumps right out of my mind at the moment.
Well, looking at some of the screen caps, it does look a little bit like a Mega Man type game.
Yeah,
at least that's what the graphics make me think of.
Yeah, it's got that classic NES Capcom look to it. Like this falls right in there with like DuckTales and the Disney games like Chippendale Rescue Rangers and things like that. I would put this right next to like DuckTales as far as like the music and the kind of the aesthetic of the game. Trying to gather the keys to get through the level. So if anything, it's kind of close. That's probably the game it's closest to is like DuckTales.
Gotcha.
Sort of like a mix.
It does look
of,
like
say,
DuckTales a little bit too.
Yeah, it's kind of a mix of like DuckTales and Mega Man sort of. So it's a really interesting game, and I can't really. From what I've played so far, I mean, as far as the graphics and the music and the gameplay, I would give this game a good solid 7 so far, but I think if I actually finished the game, I would give it probably a higher score, but I don't know. I haven't finished the game, but that'll probably take me a couple of months or maybe some cheat codes or something, because it is that Nintendo hard kind of game.
You have to pop in the Game Genie.
Maybe.
Guy, I kind of want to see if I can find the movie somewhere and watch it, because I could have swore I watched this as a kid. It looks just so familiar to me.
I imagine you did, because I remember the cartoon, the movie, being kind of an HBO staple when I was a kid.
Yeah. That's probably where I saw it, to be honest. But it might even be like on YouTube or something.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Or maybe you could... actually, let's look it up right now. Little Nemo... What was the name of the movie? The name of the movie was...
Adventures in Slumberland.
Adventures in Slumberland. Nemo. Let's see.
I'll check Prime.
It is on Amazon.com. Actually, I could look it up on... let's see. Just watch. And look for... Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland. Right now, it is... It is not streaming anywhere, and it is not available for download anywhere.
Wow, I was way off.
Let's look on YouTube and see if there is a bootleg.
Don't let us down, YouTube. Adventures in Slumberland. We might have our winner.
Oh, yes. It is anime on TMS official channel. This is the very first one that pops up. So, yeah, it's available right now on YouTube.
Shout out to Anime on TMS official channel.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in playing the game, watching the movie, go to YouTube, watch Little Nemo and Slumberland, and then go fire up Little Nemo, the Dream Master on your NES, which I would very much recommend.
So you said you would give this a 7?
Yeah, I'd give it about a 7 so far from what I've played so far. And just to tell everybody a little bit about the gameplay, the player controls Nemo as he proceeds through side-scrolling 2D levels. Each level, you must collect a number of keys, which are generally scattered throughout the large levels. The number of keys needed to beat each level is not indicated to the player until reaching the exit at the end of the level, which kind of sucks because you get there and you find out you've still got like 1 key left to get, so you got to go backtrack everywhere you've been and try to find any spots you may have missed. Throughout each level, the player encounters several animals, which after being fed candy will allow him to use their powers. Some of the animals are necessary, while others simply make things a little easier. The animals' life bars often differ from Nemo, with some animals possessing extra health bars. Such abilities are vital, as many challenging obstacles, you can say that again, exist throughout the game, and the enemies are virtually almost infinite. As such, Little Nemo is generally regarded as a highly difficult game. Yeah, you can say that again.
Kind of going back to that Nintendo hard that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's up there probably as one of the toughest games I think I've played in a long time.
Wow.
But it's fun. I mean, if you're a Nintendo, if you're interested in getting a Nintendo collection and playing Nintendo games, you can't go wrong with a Capcom title, especially in the NES era. They were just on top of their game, without meaning to use a pun. But back in the NES era, Capcom were just, they were firing on all cylinders. So you can't go wrong with a Capcom title. This is definitely one of their best from what I've seen so far. As far as, just the look of the game, the graphics, the music, gameplay, it's really difficult. So if you're in the mood for a really cool looking game that's really difficult, this is right up your alley.
For sure. Yeah, I want to check out some gameplay of this. So,
you can watch me flounder on the first 2 levels for 2 hours on my YouTube page if you want.
I think I might do that because, like I said, until we did this show, I had no idea that this was a game. Like when you mentioned it, I think off air last week, you mentioned Little Nemo, and I thought nothing of it. And then when I saw the poster, I was like, oh, I had no idea that was a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just associated it with the movie.
Yeah.
So it's been a very, very informative show for me this week.
Awesome. But yeah, we actually put out a call for people to send us some MP3s or, emails about the big Zelda discussion we had a few weeks ago. We got one from one of our longtime listeners, Mr. Tyler Watsons, who's been with us since the beginning.
Nice.
And I'm going to play. This is going to run about 2 minutes, so we're going to let Mr. Watson give us his thoughts on Legend of Zelda.
Hey guys, Tyler Watson here. So you wanted to hear some of our Zelda memories. So my first proper introduction to the series was through Zelda 2 at a friend of mine's house when I was a kid, and played it a couple of times, died a lot because I'd never played anything like it before, and of course became obsessed with watching the cartoon show. And Derek, anybody that gives you any guff for liking the Zelda show, you just look them dead in the eye and just go, well, excuse me, princess. But I didn't actually own any of the games until about 98, 99 when I got a copy of Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, which are still my 2 favorite in the whole series. And the music is really kind of what drew me in and really blew me away, so much so that when I was in junior high, I was on the newspaper and yearbook staff, and when I'd get sent out on assignment, while everyone else was in class, I'd get to roam the empty halls by myself, so I made a little adventure out of it and would hum the overworld theme to myself every time I was out and about. Also got a Jimi Hendrix Greatest Hits CD about that same time, and I was listening to that a lot. So now the two have kind of become synonymous with each other. So I can't hear All Along the Watchtower anymore without picturing Link adventuring through the Dark World. It's probably my second favorite series behind Mega Man, and I went to Japan in 2005. I won a trip over there to be on a TV show, and our first day of filming, I'm in my emerald green Legend of Zelda shirt with Link kneeling down, holding a shield, sword out. And it was a hit with the crew. They were telling me how much they used to play it when they were kids. So yeah. So again, thanks for letting me send this in, and hope you guys have a good one.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you, Tyler, for sending that in. And if anybody out there, if you want to send us your Zelda memories or even any retro gaming memories, please send them to nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. And Derek, did you have any thoughts on Mr. Watson's email?
Well, it's funny because I know exactly what shirt he's talking about. You know, it's a pretty popular Zelda shirt, and thanks for having my back with the show. It's so bad it's amazing.
Yeah,
I love it. That was really fun. I hope we get more of those in the future.
That's cool. I didn't know that he won a trip to Japan. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Why can't I win a trip to Japan? Maybe I need to
right
enter some contests or something.
Yeah, same here. Take Nerd Cave Retro to Japan. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, that'd be great. Go to the Nintendo Japan headquarters. That'd be awesome. NCR on the road.
That would be too good.
But yeah, I think that's going to about do it for this week. Did you want to say anything about Rampage before we go?
Yes. So we actually had, I'm trying to pull up the message here. We got a message on Facebook from Derek Bryant asking if we were going to do a Rampage review before the movie comes out. Well, the movie does come out next Friday, so I will be reviewing Rampage next week, which I didn't know it went as far back as the arcade days. You know, I remember playing Rampage World Tour, but I didn't know the original one, you know, came out in '86. So, and even going back and looking through the archives, I have yet to review an NES game or an arcade game on this show, which is kind of crazy to think about. So, yeah, next week I will be reviewing Rampage.
That's awesome. And I didn't even think about that you've never done a single NES game, like straight up NES game.
Nope, just SNES, Game Boy, and 64.
That's awesome. Oh, I forgot something else I wanted to talk about too, from Mr. Derek Bryant on our Facebook page. He sent us some messages. On ThinkGeek right now, there's this thing that is the exclusive vinyl LP of the Namco Museum, and let me click on this.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the vinyl. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it won't let me click it. It was letting me click it before. But it's a Namco Museum exclusive vinyl LP, and I guess it's basically just all the music from the original. Like it's got Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Galaga, Rally X, Mappy. We've talked about Mappy before on this show. It's $34.99. I may have to pick this up just for posterity.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And the whole the cover and everything just looks really cool.
Yeah. He also went to in Indianapolis. There's a children's museum, and they had a setup for comic books and video games. It's really cool. There's like all these different things set up with like old toys and video games and stuff. And I would love to go to this museum, even if it is a children's museum. Like it looks really cool. Like all the stuff here.
No, absolutely. No, it looks like a really cool place.
Yeah. Yesterday I went to the flea market, and one of the things I forgot to talk about on the show tonight, I picked up an NES for $5. We actually went to the flea market, and we went to there's this tent sale that goes on about every 3 to 4 months at these storage. This big storage place about half a mile from where I live. And they have this big tent sale out there. And I went by. This guy had an old NES and 2 controllers and hookups and everything. And I asked him how much he wanted, and he said it's as is, $5, no guarantee that it works. I'm like, well, that's cool. I mean, $5 for the controllers alone is worth it. So I brought it home. I cracked it open. It's really clean on the inside, and the outside cleaned up really nice too. I broke everything down. I cleaned it. I took out the 72 pin connector. I boiled it, and I put everything back together. It still won't play the games, but it does come on. It's just I get the blinking red light. Which basically just been talking to one of our followers on Twitter, Mr. Nate at Retro Gaming Dev or Retro Game Dev.
Retro Game Dev. Yeah, which he's awesome, by the way. He posts a lot of cool stuff constantly on Twitter.
Yeah, follow that dude. He posts all kind of cool stuff. And he was kind of asking me about it and everything. And apparently, all it is just it's got a connection issue somewhere, which means that it's not getting the signal from the game. So I'm going to go back into it and try to bend the pins out, because, after time, the old school Nintendo, you push the games in and you push down to make the connection with the game. Well, that was kind of a bad design, even though it's a really cool system. Over the years, the pins start to bend downward and they don't make a good connection. So I could go and get a brand new 72 pin connector, but I don't really want to do that. I'd rather kind of see if I can get the old one to work, because it looks really good. So before I resort to getting a new 72 pin connector, I'm going to go back in and try to bend the pins out. And if I can get it working, my plan is I'm going to sand this thing down really good. I'm going to spray paint the whole thing black, and then I'm going to get a Legend of Zelda stencil. And I'm going to stencil a Legend of Zelda symbol or logo on the top of it in gold. So it's going to be my Zelda box when I get done with it. It's going to be
and that will look amazing.
If anybody wants to buy it, you can have it for $500.
Only 500?
Maybe more. I don't know. Well, I'll see what I can get for it. I'll start a bidding war.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah,
that would look really cool.
Yeah, it's really fun to, because I've always been kind of afraid. I've always been, looked at videos on YouTube on how to actually refurbish NES, Nintendos and stuff. And I've always been a little bit scared to work on mine, like my original that I've always had. I've always kind of broken it open and cleaned it a little bit, but I've always been kind of scared to take it apart, even though they're built like tanks. You can't really break them. But actually having a second one that I don't really care about, it's nice to have, so I can just kind of screw with it and learn what I'm doing as far as cleaning it and replacing parts and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to have. I'm glad I picked it up. So I'm thinking they're actually going to be there tomorrow, and he's got more. So I think I might go and pick me up a few more just to see if I can refurbish all of them and turn around and make a profit.
No, absolutely. No, that would be a great idea.
But anything else you want to talk about before we go tonight? We broke an hour, so we've been going for quite a while.
Yeah, no, just as we said earlier, check out the survey panel on the Derek Diamond Experience Facebook page. The audio version will be out probably sometime in May. But as always, new episodes of that show come out every Thursday on iTunes, Spotify, all podcasting platforms. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram as well at D-Diamond Podcast.
Fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and play our outro music. And where is our outro music? Let's see it. Where is it? Is it here? Yeah, here it is. I don't have it turned up. So one of these days I'm going to get this right. If you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro.com or nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. you can go to our own website at nerdcaveretro.com. We're on Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro, at jfantastic, at Derek_Diamond, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdcaveretro. So Derek, tell them what it's all about.
Excuse me, princess.
You've been listening to a Nerd Cave Network production.
Well, that was a fun show.
Yeah, a lot of good conversation.
I'm going to go ahead and kill the feed to Twitch right now. So everyone that joined us on Twitch, thank you. And this will be up on YouTube later for this week. And you can also go listen to the podcast. So go do that. Just go to nerdcaveretro.com. Follow us on Twitter at nerdcaveretro. We will see you next week. Goodbye.